Hello, everyone. How are we doing? Welcome to the Learning Revolution podcast, where we try to make learning exciting, engaging, and empowering. How are you doing? I'm pretty stoked tonight because I am speaking to, I think, one of the biggest voices. I won't use the word biggest, I would say one of the so the voice is not so loud, but Henry is doing an amazing job in the learn and development space. And some of the senior friends I have speak highly of him, and I'm super glad to have Henry on the show this evening. Henry, how you doing, Henry?
Yeah, I'm fine. Thank you, Gabriel. I'm super excited to be here this evening.
Super glad to have you. Um, Henry. So before we continue, can you I usually like to give my guests the honor of sharing their story and telling us about themselves. So, I mean, it won't be different with you today. So, tell us a bit about yourself, the amazing things you've done, and every other thing you think we should know about you.
All right. Thank you very much, Gabriel, and thank you, the audience, colleagues. Let me just use that term. My name is Henry Ogundolire, and I usually describe myself as a human-focused learning designer and developer. And I use that human focus because I do not design learning solution for animals or machines. I'm focused on humans, and that has a lot of implications and a lot of so many stories around it. So I will start with just two stories, and the first one is related to while I was still in my undergraduate days, and I remember that while I was taking my technological based course, engineering courses, and they were teaching us winding. If you study electrical, you have a lot of electrification, you have a lot of windings, you have a lot of stuff that are so abstract that you cannot actually relate with. So why that was actually going on in my mind, I was like, we should have a better way to present this particular concept. So why our lecturers not going in that direction? This seemed as so abstract. I don't even understand how it looks like. So I started thinking through how I can begin to ensure that concepts are broken down in a more realistic way, such that learners can connect with it. So that's actually the beginning of my journey into learning and development space. And of course, I did masters in educational technology and PhD in educational technology from the University of Ibadan. And from there, I started working on creating learning solutions using technology, be in the space of e-learning and do instructional design and do learning experience designs. And I've been doing that for the past 11 years across organizations and institutions in Nigeria and outside the country like that. So that's the first story. And the second story was actually way back before that particular one that I talked about. The other one I talked about was when I was running my degree program. The first one that actually caught my attention that I still remember up to today was when it was during a lecture time that my lecturer was teaching, and he used two particular scenarios, two particular contests that I will never and I've never forgot up to now. And he was teaching us about effectiveness and efficiency, and he used something that resonated with me so much that up till now, I've not found anybody that could actually describe or explain those two concepts better than the way my teacher actually did. And he did that because it was like that because it resonated with my context. So that's another concept that I've been paying attention to over the years, context, because if learning is going to take place, we need to pay attention to context. And so this has been some of the things that I've been doing around context and the fact that how can we make learning more sticky and how can we make learners to get to just connect with whatever you're actually teaching them. So, and I've been doing that for for years now, and I've consulted for organizations, I've designed learning solutions for organizations, and I'm still doing that right away. At least that's just a little bit about self for now. Hello?
Hi, Henry. Sorry for that. Um, I mean, that's the beauty of our. So
All
continue on
right.
with you. I mean,
Yeah,
we had the
I think
network out.
I think I'm done. I don't know whether at what point did you miss what I was saying.
Yeah, I the point where you were telling us about the second story.
Okay. Yeah, I think the second story is around contest generally, because I did say that while my lecturer was teaching me, he was teaching us about effectiveness and efficiency, and he
Hmm.
used a story that resonated with me, that resonated with my background, with my context. And ever since
Hmm.
that time, I've not actually forgot that particular understanding, and I've never seen anybody that have been able to describe what effectiveness and efficiency is all about better than that my teacher, because he used something that resonated with me. I don't know if there's anybody in my class then that could still remember that particular concept. Maybe because it didn't actually resonate with them, but for me, it's actually
Interesting.
resonated with me, and that talks about context. And ever since that time, I've been paying attention to context. If learning is going to take place, it must take place in a context.
Interesting. Can you tell us that story? Can you tell us the story that you were told?
All right.
Difference
I
between
think
effectiveness and efficiency.
effectiveness and efficiency. So the story is very interesting. He said that he used two um, different units of soldiers. He said we have a captain with 100 soldiers and another captain B with 100 soldiers. Captain A has 100 soldiers with a captain. Then team B has 100 soldiers with a captain. So if he said if team A that has a captain plus 100 soldiers goes to a war and they win that particular war, right? But they lost. They lost, so they came on with just one soldier with a captain. And the other team B goes to that same war and they won, but the captain came back home with 99 soldiers. So in that sense, which one is most effective and which one is efficient? So of course, we started talking so many, giving so many responses. Eventually, it said the one that came home with 99 soldier is the one that is efficient. But the one that came on with just only one soldier, even though he got the results, but he lost so many resources, is the one that is very effective. And
Mm,
ever since that time, that has never
mm.
left me. So for me, efficiency is about getting the results and at the same time managing the resources that you have. Why
Interesting.
effectiveness is getting the results without paying attention to the amount of resources lost in the process of getting that result.
Wow, that's quite an exciting. I mean, over the years, I've studied the difference between efficiency and effectiveness. Also, I've always seen it from the perspective of, I mean, what you said, but this story just makes it come more alive. Now, let's get into the meat of the matter. How would you describe or how would you define a blended learning approach? If what as a learning developer, an experienced learning developer and designer, how would you define a blended learning approach? Because there seems to be a lot of definition out there. Um, how would you define it?
Yeah, I'm very sure you know that there's so many definitions outside there. So define blended learning, it's not just one way definition sort of. So I like to pay attention to about few factors. Take for instance, I want to look at it from the perspective of process. I want to look at it from the perspective of products. I also want to look at it from the perspective of strategy. And of course, the last one is system. So, of course, we know that the understanding of blended learning is like saying you're missing so many things together to get something done, to achieve a particular goal. But
Yeah.
what are you mixing? So you're not just mixing products, you're not just missing one particular factor, you're missing processes, you're missing products, you're missing strategies, you're missing systems to be able to get the results that you're looking at. So for me, blended learning, it's like trying to look at it from those four factors. You're looking at it from the process,
Mm,
which is thinking through the whole thing, and you're looking at, okay, if you want to ensure that learning takes place and you want to use blended learning, you have to find a way to mix how the thinking will look like, which is the process like that. Then, of course, when you look at the products, you're not only looking at just one media element, you're looking at so many media elements, like you're looking at maybe you're looking at audio plus text or plus animations or plus simulations like that. Then when you look at strategy, that's when that's actually where a lot of people talked about blended learning, but blended learning is more than strategy. Is also about system, is about product, is about process like that. So for strategy, if you are looking at whether you want to, like, you are looking at the angle of implementation, because when you talk about strategy, you are looking at the implementation part of it, and you are looking at whether you want to mix it together with want to mix that learning process together with whether online or offline or the face-to-face interaction or something like a discussion. So you are looking at so many things that will eventually make sure that learning takes place. So to define what blended learning is, it's eclectic, and it's something that you cannot really say this is what it is. It all depends on what the organizations actually want to come, what the organization actually want to learn, or what the employees want to actually learn, and you have to look at so many other factors to be able to say, okay, this is how I want my blended learning approach to look like, like that. I don't know whether I've been able to. I like to describe things other than giving a definition, because if you give a definition to a thing, people can begin to say, okay, this is how it looks like, and they can just go ahead and implement things. And when eventually, when they get to the part of implementation, they see that this is not actually working. So I prefer describing a concept using different factors so that people, when people are implementing that particular blended learning strategy, know what they are considering before implementing it.
interesting. That's so great. I like the fact that you am I still audible?
Yes, yes, yeah,
I
yeah,
like the fact that you described it or defined it from the perspective. I like the fact that you described it, not necessarily defined it. And that's pretty important because a person's ability to describe something sort of just makes it come to life more, just like your lecturer in school that described the difference between efficiency and effectiveness and not necessarily defined it. I like the fact that you said blended learning is a mixed blend of everything: process, products, people, systems, strategy, just a whole big smoothie of of learning elements and activities to ensure
yeah.
that people learn. How would you in your books, would you say that this type of learning is crucial for driving performance and business outcomes for organizations?
Yes, my straight answer to that is yes, because that is the best strategy that can drive a performance in any organization. Because you know why? We are dealing with people, and people are dynamic. People are not the same. We have different backgrounds, we have different upbringings, we have different things that will will make people to look at things from different perspective. And so if they're looking at it from their own perspective, you need to be able to ensure that whatever you are pushing to them resonates with them. So the best approach to driving performance in an organization, for me, I think I need to just underline something there, which is something that usually says, a statement that usually say that the most fundamental need of human actually is learning, right? It's not what Abraham Maslow talked about in his hierarchies of needs. You know, he first talked about physiological needs like that. For me, below that, the most fundamental need of human is learning. And so, if learning actually takes place in an organization, I'm very sure it's going to drive performance, it's going to drive growth. And the best way to present learning solution is to go the way of blended learning. So for me, I think it's the best approach because of the dynamisms that is involved in the learning process of people. And of course, people are dynamic. And of course, we have over 8 billion people on earth. You can't say they're the same. So people are the
Mm.
same, and organizations are differ from organizations. So we need to be able to blend a lot of factors, a lot of elements together to be able to see which one actually, because we don't know. One of the other statements that I need to pay attention to that I usually say is that we don't know when actually learning takes place. We don't know. The only
Yeah,
person
you
that
can't.
knows when learning takes place is that person, or we measure the impacts of that learning that's taking place within that person. So what we do is to create that sweet spots where learner can connect with whatever you are presenting before them. So, and the best way is to use blended learning approach because of different
Is to
learning
mash them up.
styles, anything. Yes.
Interesting. I like that. I like that conversation about we don't know when learning happens because sometimes organizations, business leaders, people find it very difficult to accept that learning is actually out of the control of the instructor.
Exactly.
We can influence
Exactly.
it, the learning designer can influence it by putting things together, but learning happens when the learner decides to learn. So it's the learner that gets to that point and says, this thing, I'm going to know it, I'm going to pay attention. I mean, how many times do they say things and it's possibly 4 weeks down the line, maybe you are mowing your lawn, and then you realize that, oh, this is what this person said, so this is what it means. That is the moment you're learning something that has been said 4 weeks ago. So my question, another thing I would want us to talk about is, so organization. So we've sort of agreed that the blended learning approach is crucial for driving performance. You put a bit of e-learning here, you throw a bit of face-to-face learning there, virtual classes, all mashed up to create something amazing. What would be the key considerations for organizations when implementing this technique? So, what are the key things they need to look out for? What are the key things they need to put in place when trying to implement this strategy?
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Gabriel. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much for that. The way I will approach that particular question, it's going to be around trying to discover who your employees, who they are actually, creating employees profile, sort of. So because we need to, before you can decide uh, what type of uh, blended learning or what type of strategy to use, or when you're trying to decide the blended learning type you're going to use, because there's so many types there. So you need to first pay attention to who your employees, who they are. And in doing that, you need to, usually, we normally talk about demography, which is probably external characteristics of your employees. But what about psychography? So I usually talk about understanding your employee very well, and not only just looking at their physical characteristics, you also need to look at the psychography, their interests, their aspirations, and of course the direction of the organizational vision, where the organization is going, and how you want to, where you want to see your employee be in the next social number of years. So, well, basically, you have to consider you have to consider knowing the the profile of your employee, the psychography of your employee, and the demography of your employee. With that, you can now say, okay, this is who they are. This is the interest of my employee. This is who they are, and like you know their interests, you know their aspirations, and from there you can now begin to say, okay, I need to sit down based on what I have now, based on the data of my employee that I have genuinely. Then you can now say, okay, this is the type of learning approach that I'm going to use for them.
Okay. So when we look at it this way, what tactics do we use to get this answers that we want? Because it's clear that without need analysis, we can't even move forward, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
what tactics do we use? I mean, you've spoken from a strategy level, so I'm like, let's
Mm.
bring this home for the guys currently at work who need to do this. What tactics do we use to get this survey? I mean, I've already even mentioned one. I've said it's survey, but to really get this
Yeah.
need analysis, what tactics would you advise that we use?
I remember that in Flexi Edusoft in Abuja, there's this particular strategy that FlexiServe normally deploys for to be able to gather data them from their staff, and that is one-to-one interaction between the team leader and the team member. So what the team leader does is to have a one-on-one conversation with every team member of that particular themes, and from there the team leader gathers all the data from the team members, then of course now forward it to the next person in that hierarchy. So for me, I think if you look at one-to-one interaction, maybe at the end of a particular project or at the end of a particular task, you can have an interaction with the team members, like that. It could be in form of interview, it could be in form of, I know they have done that with me several times. They will just call me and have an interaction with me on phone and talk about some of the issues that I have and some of the suggestions I can give to them based on this particular project. So they have one-on-one interaction, kind of conversation with the staff like that, and of course you can also have an interview with your staff. You can also send them a kind of discussion, sort of, where you ask them to write whatever they want to write. They should not mind writing any either negative or positive. It's just write whatever they want to write about that particular organization and how they can move the organization forward. With that, I think you will be able to get genuine data that you can leverage on to create learning solutions for them.
Awesome. That makes so much sense. So how do you manage this if the organization is large and you don't have that? I mean, my organization, for instance, we're about 11,000 plus. Like we're so large. How do you try to, maybe a team leader has 500 teammates? How, I mean, is one-on-one interaction the best way to get data? Is that an efficient way to do it? Or how would you advise? What would you say for organizations with large teams? I'd like to get your thoughts on that.
Because of the the volume of data you need to gather from your staff, just
Mm.
like maybe if the staff strength is about 11,000, imagine that. For me, I think what one would need to do is to find the best way to still get that data that you want to get. But for one thing is so important to me as a person, it's that you need to have a conversation with your staff, like that. Not go beyond, it goes beyond what they call it now, sending them a survey and they just anonymously they just fill it and like that. So you need to find a way to have that connection with them. I know in FlexiServe, one of the things they do is to have to organize a kind of connection every month, like that. They have where they gather everyone, all the staff, whether online or offline, just to have this community where all of them begins to talk and, you know, have these interactions, just to have everybody to speak and to talk and to just voice whatever they have on their mind and how they can also improve the organization. For me, I think you just still need to find a way to interact with the staff, in a more conversational manner than just sending a general survey, like that to them. That way it connects with it makes it personal and it makes staff to feel like, oh, you feel so much, I'm so important, so that's why you're having this conversation with me. So they still need to find a way to get that one done, even in a large organization.
All right. I mean, one of the ways that can work is focus group meetings. Um, you can get needs from focus group meetings, so you sort of create them into departments and then kind of have meetings. That's what I will do for a large organization. I would say, okay, customer success, you guys are maybe 350. Those 350 should have teams in between, maybe team alpha, team beta, sort of like that, and then have focus group meetings with those teams, and allow them just sort of speak. I also think
Yes.
that, um, so in your opinion, who should run this need analysis? The learning designer, or the learning and development team, or the manager of the team?
I think the three of them should work together. It should be a collaborative work. It should be, because there are some factors that the manager is looking at that probably is not, if it's not properly communicated to the learning professional or the learning designer, he may not be able to pay attention to that. So I think the three of them should work together. Where we need the input of the manager, then the manager comes in to say, okay, this is what I'm looking at, like that. I think for me, the learning manager should chart a path like that. Then, of course, it can now cascade down to the next person, to the next person. So I think for me, the three of them should work together in a collaborative manner to get the best out of that data.
Hmm, excellent. I agree. I think all three should collaborate. The manager should cheerlead, while he sort of has those other guys on the call to ask questions that he or she might meet. I mean, a couple of questions more. What role do you think technology plays in enhancing this blended learning experience? Because most of the times when we talk of blended learning, people think that this blended learning thing is a online thing. You can have physical live sessions
Exactly.
and still have blended learning in it. So, but let's move online. Let's go to tech. What role do you think technology plays in enhancing it? Does technology sort of reduce its capacity, or does technology help scale it?
Okay, I think for me, there was a particular year that my PhD supervisor wrote a paper and she called it What Technology Cannot Do. So, and in that paper, she spelled out the limitations with technology because technology will not occasion the learning. So for me, technology is just an enabler. It's
Hmm.
just an enabler. So you want something done, and you're looking at, okay, how do I ensure that this is done in a way that will promote the goal of that particular task? So if you feel that it is technology that will do that, right? So just use technology to enable that process. But technology itself will not make that will not achieve that goal itself. It's just to enable the the process so that whatever you want to achieve with learning, technology can
Hmm.
enable it, can make it faster. And take for instance, if you want to send a message, instead of trying to send it by using the traditional means, you can like looking at, okay, what type of technology can I do to send this particular message quickly, and it will get to everybody at the same time. So in that way, but it's not the technology that we configure or create the message that you want to send to them. Even though now with the introduction of ChatGPT and some other things, that's also can be of help. So for me, technology is just an enabler. When it has to do with learning, it's just an enabler.
Hmm. So you also believe in the philosophy of don't chase shiny things.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's begin to bring it home. Can you walk me through or walk us through a simple, let's say we are trying to, I like to be very practical and possibly this might be my last conversation. Let's say that you want to, and I like to use food a lot because one way or the other, some people, every almost 80, a large percentage of adults have cooked in their life, in their lifetime, whether it's to boil water or to do something. They've encountered the kitchen.
Mm,
80% of adults.
mm.
Let's say that to, you want to help me learn how to cook. What would you say is your best meal?
Beans.
Beans. So let's say you want to teach me how to cook beans the way you like it, and let's make that a course. And we want to use a blended learning approach to teach that. How would you go about it? Taking into consideration everything you've said, systems, processes, the people, the product. How would you help me learn how to cook beans the best, the way you would like it?
Okay, so just thinking on the spots, right?
Yeah,
So
on the spot. Yeah.
yeah, so the first thing I would do for me is the person that will cook it for me, I will just ask, can you please describe how how your beans would taste? Just give me a description of how your beans will taste. At the end of it, just give me the end products of how your beans would taste. The taste part of your beans. So then, if you can describe that one for me, right? That is like
Mm.
giving me a direction.
Okay.
Okay, so once I get that direction, that is how you want your beans to taste at the end of the whole thing. So that's like that. So determining the direction, right? So that's the first thing I would do. Then once I get that one, then I begin to look at, okay, so what's the first thing to do? The first thing is I will have to I will have to start picking the beans. like that. Pick the beans. Then once you pick the beans, then pour that beans into bowl. Then wash it very well. Once you wash it very well, then pour it into your pots. Once that is done, like that, then instantly try to add your onions. I usually had my onions from the beginning, right? So I'll
Sorry,
had my onions
let
from
me
the
break
beginning.
you a bit. Sorry to cut you. So
Okay.
the question is not from a content perspective, it's from a structure perspective. So maybe I should make it easy because I might not have communicated it in the best way. You know how you want to, for instance, this beans thing now. The very first thing, of course, is to understand what you want me to know at the end. So the end of the end goal of the training is that you want me to learn how to cook beans the way you know how to cook it.
Yeah.
So I'm not asking you to sort of teach me the process. I'm asking you to create a
Okay.
course that I can take.
Okay.
So create a blended learning course that I can take that can help me know how to cook beans with your recipe. Do you understand
Okay.
the question now? It's
Okay.
for me, I'm trying as much as possible to demystify the process that goes into creating a blended learning program. So where does a live session come in this beans making process? Where does self-paced learning come in? That sort of thing is what I'm asking about. Do you sort of understand now?
Okay. So I'm trying, but let me make that at the second attempt again if I'll get it
Yeah,
right
yeah.
at
I
this
mean,
point. So for me, I think the once I understand the direction, just like I said, I understand the direction,
mm,
which usually it's the objectives and all of those things like that. So then I want to like say, okay, do I want to even that objective? How do I want to present it? Do I want to present it in form of video, for sort of, or more like a story? I want to create a story around it. Of course, let's not forget that we are we are postulating that okay, we have data we have user data, right? And so we're
mm,
basing our structure on the data that we have collected. So
yes.
if I've collected a particular data, so I'm just visualizing that data. So what I will do is in introducing the goal, the direction, I will probably use a story, right? And that story, I'll put it in form of I'll put it in form of visuals. I'll put in form of visuals, and at that point, based on the user profile, I could decide to use audio to tell that story, or to use somebody standing in the front of the camera to tell that story, or I just come myself to tell that story. So once that is done,
Mm,
so I would prefer that I don't just give a text. I say, okay, for this particular course, just read this particular text as the objective. So I prefer that it comes like a story, sort of. That way, it's more captivating. So then once I'm done with that, so I will have to decide because I need to demonstrate
mm,
how that is done. So, and the best way to demonstrate is if you are looking at touching, reaching organization, I mean, your employee that are from different region, there are different locations. So that means you are not physically with them. So you have to think of using online to send in your demonstration in form of a video that you have recorded like that, or you can decide to
mm,
say, okay, I want to have a live section with the people. So it's going to be like what we are doing now. I'm demonstrating you. I'll be in the kitchen and I'm demonstrating how that could be done. So you can introduce a bit of, if you're going to demonstrate, you can introduce a bit of online that way, and depending on where your target audience, where the employee, where they are actually located, if they are not in the same location, then you have to think of using that particular strategy. So then once that is done, you want to also ask them to practice, because having demonstrated, then you want them to be able to practice. Then you have to also decide based on characteristics of your target audience. You have to decide whether you want them to create more like a simulation, right?
Mm.
So you must have created that simulation. Then you want them to practice. You want to see the real time demonstration or practice of what they're actually going through. So once that is done, or you can decide to say, okay, I want you to record the your practice. You have given them a particular task, record it and send it to me. Then you can look at it. Then if it's a physical meeting, you can decide to say, okay, I want you to go into the kitchen. You just go into the kitchen. Let me see you practicalize what has been taught. So by that way, we're looking at the problem of direction has been sorted out. The strategy has been sorted out. Of course, the way you have broken down the content has also been sorted out. You know, at times you want to give out an opportunity for chatting. You want them to chat with you to give you feedback, and that way you could make that one synchronous or asynchronous or asynchronous, as some people will call it. So synchronous and asynchronous. Then you want to also look at the evaluation of the whole thing, which I've also talked about. I don't know whether that has actually
Yeah, it's sort
provided.
of, yeah, it does. It does. It gives if I didn't know better, I would have said that you basically described Mary's first principles of instruction with a little bit of twist to it.
Yeah.
Great work. Any words, final words? Do you as we wrap up, let's hear your final words on this blended learning matter because it seems to be a buzzword. What would you think if you had an opportunity to speak to an audience full of learning professionals? What would you say what would be your parting words to them on as far as blended learning is concerned, as far as building a blended learning approach is concerned?
For me, I would just say that for to drive performance and growth, the desired performance and growth in an organization, the way to go is to make use of blended learning approach, because blended learning approach provides you know, provides so meets so many learning styles of your employee, and you can be sure that learning a little bit of what you have created in your learning solutions, your learners will be able to connect, or your employees will be able to connect with a bit of what you have created. So it's not just going to be um, one solution, one bucket like that. You have to have different buckets that you expect your employee to pick the one that resonates with them. And the best way to design learning solutions that resonate with your employees to go the way of blended learning approach, because it meets all the requirements that um, sort of. I don't know whether
Yeah.
I've said something.
Yeah, I mean, you've shared some good stuff that I think makes a lot of sense. The For me, the kicker from this conversation, or my take home from this conversation, is the very fact that you have to focus a lot on what you want to achieve because that sort of drives the entire process.
Mm,
If you're focusing more on how you want your learners to recall or how you want the media to look or the learning management system to use or all of that, you might miss it. But if you focused on what the learner, how you want the learner to learn, it sort of informs you to know that, okay, for them to really understand this, a job aid will be better. For them to really understand this, it has to be an on the job practice. Let's give them a situation based quiz for them to critically think about it so that it can drive home the point better. Thank you very much. I just want to say thank you for joining me on my show this evening. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, Henry. And to my ever loving audience that are watching from everywhere in the world, thank you for spending the last 45 minutes with us. I hope every one of you have a beautiful, beautiful evening. Thank you, Henry. Have a beautiful evening, guys.
all right. Thank
Peace.
you, Gabriel. Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.